Hi, and welcome. Today we're going to talk about something that's, well, it's really personal. It's about our families. It's about all those stories that are tucked away in shoeboxes and in the back of our minds. But with everything going on in our lives, how do we actually make sure those stories don't just disappear? It's such a weird thing to think about, right? We're taking more pictures, more videos than any generation in history, and yet we could be heading for a digital dark age. This quote, it really hits on a fear that I think a lot of us have deep down, that all this stuff we're creating won't have any meaning, that the real stories, the why behind the photos, could just vanish. And the clock is absolutely ticking. Look at this number, 10,000. Every single day, 10,000 people from the baby boomer generation turn 65. We spend so much time worrying about passing down financial things, an inheritance. But what about the real inheritance? The stories, the wisdom, the memories. That's the stuff that feels like it's slipping through our fingers. I mean, just think about it for a second. That watch from your grandfather, or your mom's wedding ring, or that old piece of furniture in the corner. We get the things, but we're losing the stories that make them magic. And without the story, well, that priceless heirloom is just stuff. And this isn't just some big abstract idea. For one person in pretty much every family, this is a very real, very heavy weight. And if you're that person, you know exactly what I mean. It's that constant little voice in your head saying, I need to get to that someday. Okay, let's talk about someone named Sarah. I have a feeling her words are going to sound really, really familiar. She calls herself the family archivist. You know the one, you might be the one. The one with all the boxes of photos. The one who feels this constant nagging. She calls it productive guilt. That feeling that you should be doing something with all this history before it's too late. And that right there, that's the trap, isn't it? Someday I'll sit down with mom and record her stories. Someday I'll finally scan all those photos. But life happens. You've got your job, you've got your kids, you're taking care of your parents, and someday just never seems to arrive. And all the while, that anxiety just keeps building. Okay, but what if there was a completely different way to think about this? What if the answer wasn't about you adding one more impossible thing to your to-do list? What if it was just about starting a conversation, but in a way you've never imagined? Because let's be honest, this is the real roadblock. How do you actually capture these stories without it becoming a second full-time job? I mean, who has the time to be an interviewer and a writer and an audio editor for their own family? It feels overwhelming. And let's add another little wrinkle to this, a really common one. What about a parent who doesn't use a smartphone? The very people with the stories we want to save, often they're the least comfortable with apps and new tech. So how in the world do you bridge that gap? Well, the answer, get this, the answer calls their landline. No, seriously, it's not an app. It's not a new gadget you have to teach them how to use. The solution uses the one piece of technology they've had their entire lives. It just calls them on the phone. So here's how it works. It's so simple, it's incredible. An AI biographer named Sam places the call. And Sam doesn't feel like a robot. He just has a conversation. He asks these gentle, open-ended questions like, so, tell me about the house you grew up in. And your parent? They just talk. That's it. And from that conversation, a beautiful chapter of their life story is written, just like that. And listen to what Sarah said happened. Her mom completely forgot she was talking to an AI. She just started chatting, sharing these amazing memories. And for Sarah, all that guilt she was carrying around, it was just gone, replaced with this incredible sense of relief and joy. She didn't have to be the one pulling the stories out. She just got to be the delighted daughter, reading them. Okay, so you've captured these incredible stories. They exist digitally. But how do you tie them back to the real world, back to those physical objects we were talking about earlier? Well, this is where it gets really cool. This is what's called the magic bridge. So get this concept, the Internet of Heirlooms. The whole idea is to turn everyday objects in your home into this incredible living museum of your family story. You use these small, really durable little tags to physically link an heirloom to the story that goes with it. Imagine this. Your great-grandchild, decades from now, sees your grandfather's old clock on the mantle. They just scan a little tag on the back with their phone, and suddenly, they're not just looking at a clock. They're hearing your grandfather's voice telling the story of where he bought it. It's like a piece of him is right there in the room with them. All right, this all sounds amazing. Almost too good to be true, maybe. And there's a huge question that we have to ask. I mean, we've all been burned by technology, right? My wedding video is on a DVD I can't even play anymore. So how do we know for sure these digital stories won't just disappear in a few years? Well, let's look at the old way versus the new way. The old way, it was like a digital sarcophagus. You put your memories on a CD or a floppy disk, and now they're basically coasters. The data is just trapped on a format nobody can read. The new way is totally different. It's not about a static thing. It's an active promise to keep migrating the data, no matter what technology comes next. And this, honestly, this is the part that I find completely mind-blowing. The answer is something called a Perpetual Purpose Trust. It's a special kind of legal structure. A part of what you pay goes into this trust, which is basically like an endowment fund. And its only job, its only purpose for existing, forever, is to pay for your family's stories to be migrated to new technologies as they're invented. Even if the company that created this is gone in 100 years, the trust and your stories are still there. They're protected. So really, it all comes down to this. We're at a crossroads. We can let these stories just fade away, becoming part of that digital dark age. Or we can build that magic bridge to the future for them. And that really just leaves one question for you to think about. If you could do this right now, what story would you say first?